Okay, good evening, everyone. I see it's 7 o'clock and council is online. Everyone's just activating their cameras. So I will now call tonight's regular meeting of council to order. And thank you, everyone, for joining with us tonight. And for those of you watching the webcast, we appreciate your time with us. So I do wish to begin by acknowledging that the district does conduct its business and that we are virtually conducting this meeting upon the traditional territories of the Sooke and Sianu nations. Our first item of business here is item 5, ministerial order. You think I could say that properly by now, M192, and that is that council is holding this meeting without members of the public in attendance under ministerial order M192, as council chambers cannot safely accommodate the unknown number of public participants wishing to attend, and that council is committed to ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability through the submission of written comments and the provision of live and recorded broadcasts of the meeting. So look for a member of council to please move this. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Logans. Thank you. And we have another item of business pertaining to this further on. So unless there's any comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next up, item 6 is approval of tonight's agenda. So council, you'll note that there is two items or two supplementary items. So I'm looking for council to move the agenda for the June 14th regular meeting with the inclusion of those supplementary items. And they will fall into place as 13.6 and 15.1. So moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thanks, everyone. Item 7 is up next, and that's our public and statutory hearings. We have one item here, and that is 7.1, which is a development permit for 6735 Eustace Road. So I'll turn this over to staff, please, for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just begin here by sharing my screen. Okay.
We can see that. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So this development permit application for a proposed new two-story mixed-use building comprising of a commercial nail salon business on the ground floor, and we'll have a residential accessory dwelling unit on the upper floor, which is located within the town center. The subject property is currently zoned general commercial C2 and is designated town center in the official community plan and has an existing single-family dwelling scheduled for demolition on the property. The Sooke Town Center Plan supports the proposal, which is for greater residential density, green initiatives, and transportation and pedestrian connectivity. The proposed new two-story mixed-use development uses excellent parameters as discussed in the form and character requirements of our official community plan. The proposed mixed-use development was reviewed against the official community plan design guidelines for form and character, which included reviewing the site design and layout, building design, the awnings, canopies, and signs, as well as energy conservation and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Conservation of natural green spaces on the property has been implemented into the design concept, and substantial landscaping has also been incorporated into the design concept for the proposed development. Construction of the proposed mixed-use building will help enhance the quality of the town center by providing a new commercial business in Sooke, as well as an accessory dwelling unit located within the town center where the occupiers can walk to other businesses. Developer has proposed to construct frontage improvements to Eustace Road by enhancing the condition of the existing sidewalk, as well as adding several street trees to make the streetscape aesthetically pleasing for people passing by. The applicants proposed to provide 4 parking stalls and 1 disabled parking stall for the commercial nail salon, as well as the required 2 parking stalls for the residential accessory dwelling unit, as per zoning bylaw requirements. There is also a bicycle parking stall to be provided per dwelling unit. And as the proposed new 2-story building consists of 1 accessory dwelling unit and a new commercial business on the ground floor, the applicants propose to include open and secure bicycle parking stalls. So with that, revitalizing the subject property from its current state, which on the screen here is the existing dwelling on the property slated for demolition. The proposed new 2-story mixed-use building is quintessential for the neighborhood, as the lot location is a transition point from the commercial business area within the town center along Eustace Road to the small lot residential neighborhood area further down. For this, and as well with compliance to our development permit guidelines, staff recommend issuance of development permit PLN 01564 for 6735 Eustace Road. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Palau. What I'll do is I'll just see if there's any questions from members of council, and then I'll turn to our corporate officer to introduce any members of the public for the public inputs specifically to this proposal. So are there any questions from members of council at this time? Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Just a couple of quick things. One of them is, I was wondering with the parking, if the developer might consider putting an EV charging, given that while people are using a commercial premise, it might be just useful to have that, and having the electrical infrastructure in place is a good plan. The other one is I noted with pleasure that they were going to have permeable pavers and some kind of a drainage tank, and I was just curious as to whether or not a rain garden was being considered over the drainage tank or to supplement the drainage with all the paving that's happening in the backyard. Finally, just a quick question to staff in general. There's no variance or zoning amendment involved here for council's consideration, I believe. We're just simply in the process of approving a development permit. What would the actual results of council refusing to approve the development permit be? Thank you. Thank
you, Councillor. Over to Mr. Palau, please.
Certainly. So, yeah, as you had stated with the permeable pavers that are being provided, so that's based on their landscaping plan, and also with the characteristics of trying to keep this site as much in its natural state as possible. Also recognizing some of the infrastructure on-site upgrade requirements. So, rain gardens weren't something that were being proposed by the applicant for this. Their proposal with the additional landscaping was in character with what they felt their proposal could meet for the development permit guidelines, as well with the EV chargers. That wasn't something that the applicant was considering to install as well, nor was it a zoning bylaw requirement for them to include that as part of our proposal. And your last question regarding refusal of this, given that it's a development permit without any variances. So in that refusal, first off, staff would be seeking some further clarification from council as for the reasons why it was not meeting our development permit guidelines. So at least at that instance, perhaps staff could have the opportunity to go back and discuss with the applicant what was being sought to meet compliance. However, at this time, staff is indicating that it meets all of our development permit guidelines, and therefore staff's recommendation is support of this application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Palau. Councillor Beddoes, did I see your hand for a question? No. Councillor Bateman? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the report, and particularly the summary table of development permit area design guidelines. I think that's the first I've seen of that, and that's very helpful. I'm curious, minimize non-essential impervious surfaces. So we have 2 stalls that will be a permeable surface out of 6. Was there consideration given to all 6 of those stalls being permeable?
So there was consideration given to that. However, based on drainage for the site and going to the southern portion of the site where the permeable pavers are being provided, that was being indicated through the landscaping plan that would be the best addition for the site, recognizing that the other paved areas would serve a better purpose as part of their site design. And then in terms of the development permit guidelines chart, we've been including this as kind of an assistance in going through this process, both for council and the public, but certainly in this report today, it probably stands out a lot easier because the contents of this report aren't as lengthy and requiring variances such as other reports where this may have been not as easily identifiable.
Okay, more of an at a glance approach here. Yeah, so, and I was also going to mention the EV chargers, and it's possible for the district to recommend these strongly. Is that right?
If I'm hearing correctly, at the time that the applicant proceeds with a building permit, if they're successful with getting their development permit approvals, that if they are able to explore the opportunity for an EV charging station, that would be something that council would be seeking from the applicant on a very strong voluntary basis, if I'm understanding.
Okay, and I guess they'll be building at step code 3.
So at this point, the mandatory requirement for building at step code 3 isn't in place, but we are working with applicants to achieve the actual voluntary step code adherence.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions from members of council? Okay, so I'll turn to our corporate officer. There is public input now, so I'd like to have our corporate officer introduce members of the public registered to speak, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We did not have anybody registered to speak for this item.
Okay, and I have not received any correspondence, or I would have sent it, so I'll confirm there's no other written email correspondence of any sort.
Correct.
Okay. All right then, council. We close the public input and turn it back to us then. So the recommendation is that council issue development permit PLN 01564 for 6735 Eustace Road for the purpose of developing a new 2-story mixed-use building comprising of a commercial nail salon business and a residential accessory dwelling unit within the town center. So moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. And I just thought of a question for staff. I mean, in this particular motion, it does state commercial nail salon, but businesses can change use as they so fit in the future. So what is built today might change in the future, and that would require basically business licensing, not necessarily approval of council. Would that be fair to say?
That would be correct. If it's a use that's permitted within the zone, then going through the business licensing process and any necessary building permits that might also be required with any possible code compliance pieces would be dealt with administratively at that point.
Yeah, just because I recall, like when our former laundromat was constructed, it's now a pharmacy, and you know, business owners change and move around. So I am in full support of this. I appreciate the pictures were quite a contrast. I almost thought, oh, the current one is this sort of black and white, kind of sad looking photo, but it's nice to see the improvement, and I'm glad to see the density as well. You know, the live above with the commercial retail on the main level. I'm really excited to see that, as well as the landscaping. So kudos to the applicant for making some really you know, creative use of the space and taking all the design and the transition into Eustace into consideration. So I really appreciate that. Any other comments from members of council now that we have the resolution on the floor? Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Councillor Lajeunesse, since your video is not working, just Or if any of you need to turn your video off because of the internet, whatever, just verbalize if I'm missing you, if you're not in favor, okay? Okay, so next up is item 8, adoption of regular meeting minutes from May the 25th. I'll look for a member of council to move adoption, please. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Questions or corrections from anyone? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of adoption? And any opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So next up is our delegation section. So we're pleased to welcome Ms. Christine Bossi from the Sooke Region Food Security Report. So I'll turn it over to our corporate officer to introduce our delegation, please.
Nothing further to add, Your Worship. Ms. Bossi, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for having me. I'm here. My name is Christine Bossi. I'm here on behalf of the Sooke Region Communities Health Network. Also part of the delegation is our Vice President, Rick Robinson. I'm here to speak to you today about a consultation that took place since January until May. It's called the Sooke Region Food Security Report. This was a consultation done across the Sooke region, but with the heavy concentration in Sooke. Can I move to the next slide, please? Or can you show the slides, Caroline, please?
Yeah, I was just going to say we don't see your presentation, so thank you.
Yeah, no, I requested. I always have gremlins when I'm on Teams, so I prefer that staff show my presentation. Thank you. Yeah.
Just for staff, are you able to put it into the PowerPoint mode?
Yes.
So that we can see it a bit bigger? It's funny, I keep trying to click on it, but then I can't, so.
I'm sorry, Your Worship, it's in a slideshow on my screen, and if that's not what you're seeing, I'm afraid I don't know how to fix that.
Okay, no, that's fine. It's the font size is large, so can read it. I have new glasses too, so thank you. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Bossi. Sorry to interrupt you there.
Yes, okay. We're on the third slide. Can we move to the second slide, please? Thank you. So the market basket measure is a tool used by Statistics Canada. It calculates the minimum amount of funds a household is required annually to manage. This includes shelter, utilities, fees, transport, food, etc. For communities such as Sooke, the minimum is just under $42,500. In the district of Sooke, 14.4% of the population do not reach the MBM and are therefore considered low income. Almost a fifth of these households include minors. Many are female single-led families, while just over 10% of low-income households are seniors. The numbers for the rest of the Sooke region lie around the same. Statistics were not available for the 3 First Nation reserves. These statistics are from 2016 census. It can only be assumed that the next census in 2021 will reveal even more hardship due to the pandemic. Next slide, please. I don't see my slideshow anymore.
There it is.
All right.
You just need to click to the next slide.
Can you do that, please, Carolyn?
I'm sorry, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, it seems like. It's on the Money Matters slide.
It should be on.
It's a tech glitch with Teams. It's not, there's a delay in it feeding through for some reason. I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you go click on the third one? There we go. Okay. So when looking at accessibility to food, it was deemed that also fresh produce was easily accessible in Sooke. It would be even more accessible if one had funds. Money was identified as the biggest obstacle in obtaining food, especially of the healthier sort. Food is often the last priority after bills are paid. It is the variable in a household. One community member stated, "My neighbors are not able to see my empty food cupboards, while they can see if I lose my house or my car." Infrequent and unhealthy meals lead to malnutrition, slow development, chronic illness, and unintentional medication misuse. One community member, when in her worst moments, survived on popcorn 3 times a day while taking heavy prescription medication. Imagine trying to function under such conditions. In addition, access to transportation was also identified as a major obstacle. For many, the food prices at the major box stores in Langford were the most favorable. One could get more for one's money. Larger purchases are not always feasible, even by public transportation, especially if one has a disability or has small children in tow. Next slide, please. There we go. Thank you. As you can see, poverty and health, including food security, are rather complex. There are so many factors that impact how one manages. When consulting with community members, their stories revealed such complexity. The solutions for them are often a holistic approach across sectors. It is through this exercise that a simple food security report became a larger poverty reduction recommendation for this community, incorporating all of these aspects. Next, please. The recommendations of this report were numerous and detailed. For this presentation, I chose to summarize as follows, albeit not exhaustively. There's a lot of positive activity in the region already, but often resulting in silos between the different sectors. Through collaboration across these sectors, we can address the important topics of poverty reduction, increased food production, and employment, including finding solutions as to how the agreed upon projects may be funded, whether through investors, partnerships, contracts, social enterprise, cooperative ownership, etc. Other short to mid-term projects would be to find ways to get more money into people's pockets, not only through employment, but evening out the playing field, addressing the various obstacles that affect individuals and navigating community members through the often dizzying services and benefits system, along with increasing service provision in our community. With the increase in population, naturally comes the increase in need for support services. Next, please. No, one up. There we go, thank you. The present working environment is increasingly contributing to inequity in our population. Jobs are increasingly unstable, lack basic benefits, and wages are not able to keep up with the growing cost of living. Education and training is an ongoing need, but seems to have increased even more recently. Many have resorted to home offices or even home businesses to try to make their way. It would appear that many in our community who are venturing alone down this path often use up much of their time in reinventing their business models, marketing strategies, dealing with bureaucracy, etc. When centralizing such tools and organizing a setting where ideas would be exchanged could be time and energy saver. WorkLink announced just recently that they are exploring such an option. This is a perfect example of community responding to a need that could increase chances of success for community members. What will require the biggest investment is actual physical infrastructure. Some of these projects are in the works already, but perhaps lacking the community involvement that could increase their impact and possible expediency. There is a need for affordable commercial space for businesses and support services, but it was recommended that this be approached wisely and in a manner that benefits the community in the long term. Other suggested innovative initiatives could be executed as well through prioritization and realistic timelines, through community collaboration and collective action. Last slide. Thank you. And for the full report, we have the link. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much for one, doing this work, and then secondly, for sharing it out with us. We certainly appreciate that. I'll just check to see if there's questions from members of council. Once I see them all, here we go. Questions, go ahead, Councillor Beddoes, then St. Pierre.
Yeah, not so much a question, just a thank you. That's a very, very comprehensive report looking through it. It's a big report, but there's a tremendous amount of information there and very educational. So well done, very well put together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you. I would reiterate Councillor Beddoes' comments. Very useful. I would also once again ask, or not again ask, What would you have specific recommendations to council in terms of policies, or where would you like this report to fit into district policies? I can see some alignment in some of our strategic priorities at this point in time, but if you had a wish list of maybe one or two that you thought could easily be achieved and you might like to ask for, now might be a good time.
Right. Yeah. No, I did put some into the report, but I'm not a bylaws person at all. But just having that whole reflection of a poverty reduction lens or an equity lens in all policy, basically just looking at this option, and I have provided different examples and recommendations along that. So my wish list is rather long. So I don't know what I would articulate right here. I mean, just looking at, for example, how our center core looks, and and just having that accessibility to mobility wise, I think is very important, right? That we can go and you don't need, that you can walk there, you can get there and all that. And I know that is already in your plans, but I think there is an urgency to that, and with regards to how things are planned forward. And there are issues about healthy foods, just making them available to everyone, and having, that these children are being exposed to so much unhealthy food everywhere they look. I think that if that could be included somehow, and look at signage and so forth. So just appearances wise and being accessible to having that good food. But I do believe there's a lot of collaboration involved, and I think council and the district, we all need to be at the table. It should be more of a work together, and not just district trying to find its bylaws. I know that's your process, but we do really need to sit together and figure this out together, and so it has more of an impact, and I think it's more holistic and rather these piecemeal approach. So that would be my strongest recommendation, actually.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bossi. Oh, Councillor Bateman, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Bossi. I guess this is the third major report we've received from Searchin this year, so thanks for all this work. It looks to me, in reading your opening pages, you're looking for the district to participate in the creation of a strategic plan to look at your report and its recommendations. And so you're nodding your head on that one. And I guess, your first point was around the Food Policy Council, specifically for the Sooke region. And as you may know, Councillor St. Pierre has moved us forward to join, at least seek funding for a CRD, Regional Food Policy Council. Do you see, I'm not really asking you any questions, am I? So there are some other things, the food hub, a sub-hub, and I guess one question regards the poverty reduction and food security in terms of when we review our zoning bylaw following OCP adoption. You're hoping that the zoning bylaw can be looked at in terms of poverty reduction and equity lenses. How might that look?
Well, I would encourage, for example, food production. But I am not, I do not think we should be putting a lot of, putting the emphasis on gardens for everyone, and because not everyone can, and not everyone is willing, and not everyone is able. But, we can find different ways to complement, and the use of the brown lands, for example, is, they have I did put in my recommendations that, if you're not using the land for agriculture, and it is agricultural land, then, maybe there should be some kind of something put in place to encourage that land actually is used. And there are many young people willing to use this land to, and to give them that help. So maybe looking at initiatives to support them in that process. With regards to, I think, densification of the town core with housing, so that indeed it is easier for people to, access the services, and that is there, and we don't need so many cars, and that people feel safe moving around in town. It's not always the case. Even if you put up a 30 kilometers an hour, people are not driving that, and children walking around, etc. So there is there's so much there's a big puzzle, and I'm sure that you're already working on it. But I think I'm just reinforcing that direction because that needs to be done. And so some things are obviously not novel ideas. I have conversed with people as well, and it's not only my observations, and it's pulling these things together. But by using that lens of, how would the most vulnerable access this? Are we making more obstacles for them, right? Or can we make things better for them? With regards to, I did mention some initiatives on the industrial zone. Why not have some greenhouses that are solar and, they don't use much water. I realize there is some logistical issues there, but there's that conversation's already being held. So I think that there's already a push towards that. But there are initiatives that we can use also in these areas of these other pieces of land as well that can be used for industrial purposes, and not only for primary resources, but for secondary and processing the foods and keeping it here. And, there's so much we could do. I don't think it's all pie in the sky what I came up with, but we do have to prioritize. I do realize that. So these are different suggestions that have come forward. And then, together we come with, prioritizations and timelines and see what's feasible and what makes most sense. And some studies have already been done around this. So you don't need to reinvent things or do new studies. It's already there. So it's trying to build upon knowledge that already exists. So, yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. And I guess with the OCP right on it's about to be birthed, its first draft, the timing couldn't be better for your recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bossi. And sort of what I hear is like a lot of the work that we have been doing, this does sort of reaffirm a lot of our work that we're doing to make Sooke accessible in what that means is in many different ways, the ongoing work with health, the support we give to community grants and so forth. So I really appreciate this as an added resource for us as we continue on. The work that even the Sooke our food bank is doing, getting healthier options to children and so forth. So it all ties in together, and even our support for prenatal care is like just at the beginning of it, all the way through someone's life. So I think it's an excellent resource document, and I think the best thing we could do at this point is receive it for information, and then sort of have it join the district library, and we can continue on that way. So, Councillor Logans, was that? I see your hand. Go ahead, please.
I was wondering if actually I could make a motion to forward it to our council committees so that they could receive it for information as well as us receiving it for information. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap in the work they're doing in this report that might help.
So maybe a motion that council receive the Sooke Region Food Security Report for information and direct staff to share it with the various Sooke, District of Sooke committees for their receipt and at upcoming scheduled meetings. How's that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Bateman. So I'll just turn to staff. I'm hoping that you got that motion. We're receiving it. Please send it over to staff or to all the committees for them to receive at upcoming meetings. We will. It should be part of their agenda to receive it and have a bit of discussion through that process as well. All good? Okay, hearing nothing. Sounds good. Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, one quick question. I understand there is a subsequent grant that you're now potentially going to pursue. Can you tell us what that relates to?
Okay, Councillor Bateman, we have a motion that's on the floor, so okay. I'd like to clear it first, and then you can do that as a, yeah, you're just sort of jumping all over here. So let's, Councillor Beddoes, are you on the motion?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the OCP committee would be delighted to get that information. It's a tremendous report, and we love to read things, so yeah, send it on. I just wanted to back your motion up there. It's good stuff. I really like it.
Perfect. Yeah, all committees to be as an agenda item for them to discuss. Perfect. Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. And Councillor Bateman, go ahead with your follow-up question.
Yeah, I recall somewhere back in the vagaries of my mind that there was a second part to this grant, and that once you completed this, there was an opportunity. What would that entail?
So basically, COVID has disrupted the grant streaming process. So apparently how it goes, it's a union of BC municipalities grant. So we got stream 1 to do this. And the next stream 2, was, the idea was that you would build upon what you did in stream 1, then continue. And then I don't know what that amount would be. Now, there was a call out for that already last February, because, as I said, the pandemic has sort of pushed everything over. So they didn't change the grant dating and so forth. But we're hoping that there will be another round in stream 2, because no one was ready when the stream 2 came out, because everything was postponed. So I will keep you posted, because that is in process right now. But then again, it could be to act on these issues, or we could choose one thing and follow that. But again, I think what determines this is their conditions and also the amount of money that is available that we could access. So that would be those two things to weigh up.
Okay. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's other,
May
I just say, already with this report and the other reports that Search has, these are good bases. This is for everyone's use. And these are good, you can cite these and use these in grant proposals, whether it's district or anywhere else, and just take the link and put it in and say, this has been documented in our community. So we already have a seniors report, we have a youth report, we have the homelessness report, we have the food security report and poverty reduction, I may add. And now we're working on the mental health one. And also the district has done the housing and the economic report. So with those reports, I encourage you all to use those links and to support your grant application so we can go for bigger money. But again, that would be good if we could coordinate that, because then we can go for the bigger fish, right?
Exactly. Thank you very much for your time with us tonight and for completing this tremendous work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Ms. Bossi, and we're going to move on to item 10, report of the Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two quick things to report on today. Just following up on Councillor Bateman's comment that third major report from Search and incredible work done in our community, great relationship. We are waiting patiently for the announcement of a number of grants that we have applied for. But tonight, I'm sad to inform Council that the searching grant for the community center on Lot A was denied. So we did get notification that that grant was not successful. Searching will be meeting with BC Housing on June 25th to get some further information on their application and the reason for it not being approved. I believe Mr. Robinson's still on the video with us if there's any questions for him. But I will report back to Council after Search and meets with BC Housing on June 25th and update Council after that meeting. And we're going to have to decide whether we hold pat. I'm hoping that there's an opportunity on the near horizon where another grant will be available. And we've got a great design. We've got a great design team. We have a very strong partnership with Search, and I don't see a huge urgency in us changing course on that quadrant on Lot A. But maybe I see Mr. Robinson's turned on his camera. You may want to say a word or two.
Good evening, Mr. Robinson. Thank you for being here. Would you like to add some comments? It's really disappointing news.
Thank you, Mayor Tate. I just wanted to thank Norm for his comments. It will provide Council with more definitive information in terms of the take BC Housing took on our proposal after the meeting on the 25th, as Norm said. Hopefully we'll get the appropriate feedback so we can resubmit in the next funding call.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll get more information on this. Councillor Bateman?
Yes, through you to Mr. Robinson. I guess there's also the outstanding infrastructure grant for the community center itself, the senior youth center.
That's correct. We have a number of grants that we're waiting to hear if we're successful or not. The one that Councillor Bateman has mentioned is $2.5 million for the senior center itself.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we need some more information and then we can see where we're at. It's unfortunate though. I'm sad to hear that actually. Okay. Mr. McInnes, anything further for your update? Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Quick update on the COVID announcement that was made at 10:30 this morning. So as of tomorrow, we are moving into stage 2. So the provincial travel restrictions have been lifted. We can travel outside of our health zones again. Outdoor and indoor meetings, maximum of 50 people. Still do have to have physical distancing until stage 3. We are waiting on the WorkSafe guidelines to show us what work plan requirements will be in place after July 1st. And what I heard today was that these new WorkSafe guidelines are going to be around communicable disease and not just COVID. So we will have some safe work plans around communicable diseases overall. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. And we do plan on having our policies updated, hopefully by July 1st, depending on when the new guidelines come out. And what else did I have marked down here? So our work plan will stay as it is now until stage 3, but you may see some smaller meetings taking place in District Hall over the next little while, as long as we can maintain physical distancing. And of course, as you mentioned, Mayor Tate, we've got item 13.3 on the agenda tonight, so I'll wait and listen to the debate around that report on the timing of making other changes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McInnes. So we'll move on to item 11, public question and comment period. So I'll ask our corporate officer to introduce any members of the public that are registered to address council.
Again, Your Worship, nobody has registered to speak this evening.
And may I also confirm that we haven't received any emails regarding any council items? I don't think so. Okay. All right. Well, that's too bad. Okay, so I'll move to item 12, which is our consent agenda. So here the recommendation is that items 12.1 and 12.2 be adopted by general consent. And of course, any member of council can extract anything for individual discussion. But otherwise, I will propose that items 12.1 and 12.2 be adopted by consent. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any questions or discussion? See none, all in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. So that takes us into 13.1, which is municipal consent for CRD bylaw number 4426, emergency communication dispatch services. I see Chief Mount has joined us. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. This staff report is looking for Council to provide consent to the CRD adopting bylaw number 4426. It's Emergency Communication Dispatch Service Establishment bylaw number 1, an amendment to this bylaw to remove the City of Langford as a participant in the service. The City of Langford's service withdrawal request requires 2/3 of consent from participants. The Sooke Fire Department understands the service needs that are unique to Langford Fire with respect to interoperability and collaboration with its neighboring departments. The original intent of the bylaw does not suit all member municipalities and the needs of the current service options that are currently in the region. There's compatibility with neighboring departments that are critical to Langford Fire Department, and they do not see the benefits of staying within the current bylaw. Fire dispatch costs have gone up significantly in the past 5 years, and I flagged this a couple years ago in our work plan to pursue further. The Sooke Fire Department is in support of a competitive RFP process that will provide options to the region as opposed to a sole sourcing providing option through the Capital Regional District. The chiefs in the region came together to look at this as an option. We ended up having input in this process, and we're looking at avoiding any kind of considerable cost creeps that we experienced in the last 5 years. Since the report was submitted, the RFP process is underway, and it looks like there's just one option for the members in the region. With respect to any legal impacts, the most appropriate method in the case is consent on behalf of councils and other electoral area directors, as any alternative options could be very complex and have some additional costs. As far as any financial and budget impacts specific to the District of Sooke, departure of the City of Langford from this bylaw does not seem to negatively impact any financial health and well-being to ourselves and any remaining participants. The District of Sooke is expected to see some short-term benefits in receiving anywhere from a 40 to 50% reduction with a new service provider for fire dispatch in the region, with currently no unexpected transitional costs that could be incurred when you're moving from one provider to another. There may be some unknowns with respect to some record management and some privacy items. We get to see any final figures from this RFP process. There's several attached documents that are part of this report that really explain the history of why we're looking at consent right now for adopting this bylaw. This concludes my presentation, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you may still have.
Thank you, Chief Mount. This was sort of a complex item just to get familiar with, because for myself, I was stuck wondering with the e-com and police dispatch and now with fire. So I had to just sort of untangle how the two came into be, but and why the CRD, and it was because through bylaw they have been providing that service on behalf of, as the chief said, Langford and several others. And so the Langford did choose to progress their own RFP, and the decision that I made as a CRD director along with others was to remain with the CRD service. The CRD did go through an RFP process, which is closed. And the concern that they had raised was if we had gone out as individuals, we may or may not receive a successful bid because we're just small. So you may know that some of our some other municipalities within the region get their dispatch through Surrey, for example. And so in this case, we have been, Saanich was the only response to the RFP, and the cost did come down in price. So we are actually going to save through the CRD requisition in that way. I was a bit concerned if Langford withdrew, would that make us, as the remaining participants, pay more as a result? But that's not how the calculations had worked out. And mainly it's because the service that we did receive through Langford it's outdated now. It would cost over $1 million to bring that facility up to current standard, which would be cost prohibitive for us when we could receive the same, not the same service, but the more modernized service through Saanich. So I'll just leave it at that, but the report really covers off a lot of those details. This is basically, as the chief said, we need to provide our consent. It'll then flow to the CRD board. Anytime you are in a CRD service, you do require that consent to withdraw from it at a later date. Okay, that covers it. Questions from anyone? It's basically, do we let Langford out? Really? It's sort of the, but there is a lot of background into where we're at. Okay, Councillor Bateman, then St. Pierre, then Beddoes.
Yeah, I wanted to move the recommendation that council consent.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, so council consent. That council consent to the CRD adopting bylaw number 4426, emergency communication dispatch service establishment bylaw number 1, 2012, amendment bylaw number 1, 2021 to remove the city of Langford as a participant of the service. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any comments? Councillor Logans? Nope. Councillor Beddoes?
Well, I was going to ask a question of the chief, but the motion is being made and seconded now, so.
Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I just that, it was stated that with Langford leaving and the deal with Saanich, that we see a 40 to 50% reduction in our costs. So if Langford stayed in and we still went with Saanich, would that be a bigger reduction? Because Langford would take a portion of that. Would they? I don't know. I just wanted to explain to me if you would, please.
I don't believe so, because I'm just going to try to find, in a nutshell, it's based on our population calls for service. Like that's what I thought. Do we all need to group together? And then I don't see, when we looked at it and got some preliminary with all of us, it was all roughly the same. You know, maybe I could be out $3,000 or so, but there wasn't going to be any difference really with Langford in or Linford out.
Yeah, I have. I just honestly, I guess it's, you know, it's a big issue, as you said. It's been studied to death, and you know, what little I have in front of me here, I just have a little bit of trouble with those numbers. But I also have to go with their staff that is trained in these things. If they say doesn't make a whole lot of difference to us, then I guess I'm okay with it. But it's just not clear to me.
No, it isn't. You'd have to go through the CRD archives to find how this is all done up. But currently, for example, we pay roughly $120,995 annually to have this service with Langford. Now that it has gone out to RFP and closed with Saanich, we will pay $87,356 for the next gen service.
But if Langford was in, and they would pick up some of that cost, even though they're doing it on a per capita basis or per call basis, the more people in, you think you'd get a better deal with Saanich. But I don't know, maybe I'm just asking questions that can't be answered tonight.
Don't have the answer for that. Councillor Logans?
Yeah, that is something to wonder, but I don't think that it outweighs the benefit of Langford receiving the service they need to save lives.
Chief Mount?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Bateman. From what I understand, Beddoes, my apologies. From what I understand from what we were presented on Friday is a model that'll be a cost per call. That'll be close to about $61 per call. So regardless of length, that kind of model would be in place, different to the current type of pricing model that we had there. So that's what we've been explained verbally right now.
Yeah, it's based on call volume. So, and they have the technology and they have the capacity. I think it would be different if Saanich had to renovate to add more space to accommodate more operators, but they have the space to accommodate everyone. So in that case, there is no new accommodation cost. Okay, so we have a motion that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. The next up is from 13.2, Community Economic Development Committee recommendation, the business license bylaw number 778. So we've discussed this and our motion was to send it to the ECDev committee for some recommendations. They deliberated over it and now it's back. So anything, I'll go to Councillor Lajeunesse as our liaison to this committee. Is there anything you'd like to add further to what's in the report?
No, just that the committee agreed that we should have, everyone should have business license, and I tend to agree with that as well. I think if each different type of business has to have a different classification of license, it's going to become more and more onerous on staff to keep track of the various different licensing types.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. We've just had a presentation about food availability in the community, and these small farmers which are having a hard time making a buck. When you throw a $50 fee on top of that, it doesn't sound like a whole lot, and it probably isn't. But you know, how many of these products that you have to sell to make a $50 profit? And you know, on one hand, we say we're there to encourage food production and availability to the people in these, and there's not many of them, and these stands. And then the next thing, we're going to ding them $50. So, you know, this is, to me, these are the ones that are taking the food from their land, making it into something else, and selling it on well, you know, on their stands. And again, there's not many of them. And I just think that's, you know, we say one thing and then we turn around and do this. So there's always exceptions to everything. And one brush, broad brush, is not good for everybody. So I stand opposed to it.
Okay, we don't have a motion yet on the floor, but
Yeah,
we'll keep seeking some discussion here. Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, this is something that's been causing me a lot of grief, mostly in terms of trying to figure out what's appropriate. I do think that we do need a business license for many businesses. And when I started looking more deeply into the reasons for business licenses, what came up the most often was actually public safety. Another one that came up was basically public accountability. And both of those are really related to each other. You've got the safety and accountability of a business to make sure that they're actually providing a good service, doing it reasonably. But having said that, there's a reason for it. There's safety. We've got a lot of businesses that simply don't fall into that category of being a risk to the public. So, for example, someone that's selling doilies at a craft sale, at a craft fair, there's no reason for it. In this particular case, we've actually gone backwards from where we originally started. In the original bylaw that was presented, farm stands that had unprocessed food were excluded. Now we're looking at putting business license for everything, which means that someone that's selling blackberries by the side of the road needs a business license. A kid in a lemonade stand is selling processed goods. They need a business license. There's a lot of cases where that's not going to make any sense. Now, one of the reasons that this is put forward to us is that the strategic relevance is reputable organization. I don't actually see how that enhances our reputability. The reason behind that was to provide tools to staff. The only tool that I saw actually within the bylaw was that we could actually enforce further bylaws as soon as someone actually came forward wanting a business license. So let's say someone's child wants to have a lemonade stand. Are we going to check setbacks? Are we going to check all the different ways that they could actually be in contravention of bylaw? And at that point, are we setting up an environment where people simply don't want to step forward with business license at all? This is not actually okay, especially when, quite frankly, we can't enforce any of that on tiny little businesses that aren't making much money. In further discussion, I think that we really need to be looking at some kind of a threshold in terms of how much money someone is making. Because otherwise, the people that are being crucified on this one are the people Ms. Bossi was talking about. We're looking at people that don't have a lot of money, are trying to make a little something extra, may not have the resources or ease to go through a bureaucratic process, and meanwhile just want to make some extra money. This is not actually helping the community. Any bylaws that we put forward should really be for the benefit of the community. They should be in alignment with our strategic goals, which, by the way, are maintaining our identity. I don't see how this helps. Managing our growth wisely could be said to be helping, but I'm not so sure about that. Not on a broad.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre, I appreciate where you're going, but we don't have a resolution on the floor. Like, I'm asking for questions. So I asked Councillor Lajeunesse to go because we had sent this to that particular committee for feedback. So he's responded. There's no motion. There's our options though, but there's no motion. So until there's a motion, I'm going to ask if you actually have a question about the report.
Yes, I do. I have a question to staff. What is the intended purpose of the bylaw of a business license?
Through your worship to Councillor St. Pierre, as previously stated, it triggers that process both within the District of Sooke to ensure there is compliance with our zoning bylaw, building bylaw, and safety regulations through the fire department. I will also mention that one of the aspects that members of the committee raised were that, and some had personally experienced it, is that they were unable to access certain services without holding a valid business license. So if we didn't require them to have a business license or have an opportunity for them to have a business license, they may not be able to access those services. One of the examples that was raised was a import-export license to be able to conduct business. The other one was the fellow from WorkLink said that they have services that are available to some businesses, but they have to hold a valid business license in order to be able to access those services. I'll just leave it there, but happy to answer more questions if there are any.
Okay, other questions? Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Is there any impediment for someone to come forward and get a business license if they suddenly find that there's an advantage to having one?
Well, we would need to have a category for that, and I really don't see the logistics of making it an optional business license for a certain category of business. It's, again, we either exempt that entire category or that entire category is required to have a license.
Okay, Councillor Logans.
I'll pass for now, thank you, until there's a motion.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, a question to staff. There is still a possibility of issuing a business license but waive the fee. Is that an option? That way you still have the, you know, the oversight that's required, as you said. Yep. It's just that so it's a possibility. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'd like to move option 2 in the staff report of May 10th. And that is that council give third reading to business license bylaw number 778, 2021, as amended by adding the following definition. Unaltered means the farm product has not undergone a process of adding value by physical, biological, or other means, including but not limited to fermentation, cooking, canning, smoking, or drying.
Okay, so I was just finding it in front of me here. Okay, so that's been,
that hasn't already been moved at another meeting too.
Yes, I did move that 3 weeks ago or however long ago it was.
Yeah, moved.
So process wise, I'm just going to ask our corporate officer, since this has been moved already, and then did we postpone this decision by sending it to the committee and it's come back, or where did, I'm just trying to untangle this. If it's been moved and seconded already, then
I'm sorry, I don't have that information in front of me at the moment. I guess I was hoping for a resolution from the committee's report tonight and then would bring that back as a package for further readings at the June 28th meeting.
Oh, I see. Okay, because what is, and just for clarity here, what Councillor Bateman has read out as option 2 is different than the committee recommendation.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So yes, I was looking for some resolution from the committee's recommendation and then would bring that back together with the bylaw, including any, if this is what council goes for, I agree with Councillor Bateman, I would bring that back with an amendment to include that definition, and also with the business license policy that was previously directed. So, and there would also be an amendment to our fees and charges bylaw based on all of this information so that we can bring it back as a package rather than doing each of these decisions piecemeal.
Okay, so procedurally, I'm still just trying to understand. Okay, so is Councillor Bateman's resolution out of order then? Does that, or is it helping the process move forward?
We're still at third. So if council receives the recommendation or endorses the recommendation from the committee, then we would bring that bylaw back for third as it was presented at that previous meeting.
Okay, so, yes, his resolution is in order.
I guess is out of order at this time.
It's out of order. Okay, so are you okay to remove it, withdraw it for now, given what Ms. Muschetta has said?
Yes.
It wasn't seconded, so it doesn't exist anyway.
Okay, I thought it was. Okay, So the recommendation is that council, okay, so this is where we're looking here. Like I'm hearing a bit of mixed here. The committee is saying all businesses in Sooke are required to have a license, regardless of the size. I'm hearing some councillors express that farm stands and others should not be part of this. So in this case, we either accept the committee recommendation and go ahead one way, or we receive it for information and direct staff to do something different. Councillor Logans?
I'm happy to move the recommendation if that helps advance this, whether or not it passes.
Okay, so Councillor Logans is moving that council require all businesses in Sooke to be required to obtain a license.
Yes, and I'll speak to the motion.
Okay, and seconded?
I'll second that
by,
for discussion.
For discussion by Councillor Bateman. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Logans. Thank you.
It's complicated, but we'll see where we go. Let me lower my hand here. I'm in favor of this motion. I think it's equitable, and our job is to help the community. And I think that requiring everyone to have a business license is, as Councillor St. Pierre argued, all about accountability and safety to our community. If businesses are not making enough money or don't have the resources to afford the fee for the business license, that is not on us. That is something where we could provide funding to the community to provide these businesses with education or further marketing information or other resources and supports to improve their businesses and come to a place where they can be profitable and make more money. It's not on us to be checking everyone's bank accounts and seeing if they're able to pay a $50 fee for a business license. The reason I say that too is because it's not just farm stands who have trouble paying for business licenses. It could be a home-based business of a single mom trying to make money to put food on the table. Just because it says farm in the title doesn't mean it has to do with food more than any other business in our community. So it's a low fee. It is equitable. If we want to support people, we need to be accountable to the safety of our community by ensuring that we have this bylaw in place and do our best to have people abide by it. And we can encourage local organizations to support each other, and we can also fund local organizations to support each other in developing profitable businesses and not just continue to set folks up for failure.
Thank you, Councillor Logans. I'll go to the seconder, who is Councillor Bateman, and then I'll go to Councillor Beddoes, then St. Pierre.
Yeah, you make good points there, Councillor Logans. I really like this bylaw as it was first presented to us, and a member of the public raised some issues regarding clarity between farm stands and processed food. And it is now, and the report back came to us stating farm stands. The staff had done research in other municipalities, and it seems increasingly farm stands were being given an exemption. And hence that was included in this bylaw. So I'm a little, I appreciate what the CEDC has told us, and absolutely we need equity across the board. Given Councillor Beddoes' comments, given the report we've just received, farm stands, I would like to see it remain in this as an exemption. So I guess I won't be voting in favor of the recommendation from the committee.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, again, I thank Councillor Logans for her input there. I found it very useful. But again, I have no problem with farm stands having a business license. It's just the fee that concerns me. And knowing a few of them personally, $50 is a lot. If we could still have the oversight, and it's only going to be a few that take it, we could still have the oversight. We could still support the food security. And that's the part that hurts me the most, is that, you know, we say that we're going to encourage the food security. We're going to encourage these people to produce food and try and make a living. And then we put one more impediment in front of them. And there's lots of them, water, there's all sorts of impediments. So I have no problem with the business license, but I just think that there should be a mechanism that we can exempt some. And I'm not saying which ones to exempt, but the ones I would start with is, you know, with those food stands. So whether it's produce right off the farm or one that they've done something to it to make it more saleable. So I will not be supporting this motion as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you. I actually agree also with everything that's been said, especially with regards to equitability. But I think that it's important to note that we could actually come up with a better bylaw that's equitable to all those people that are trying to make a little bit of money and that probably don't need to be paying for a business license. And I think we could be looking at, for example, what's been done in other districts, which is a threshold. Why do we not have a threshold? If you're making under a certain amount with your business, you don't need a business license as long as it doesn't affect public safety. Obviously, if something affects public safety, then we need to step in and do something about it. But in many cases, as Councillor Logan's pointed out, we have online businesses that are making money. We have single moms that are trying to make a buck. We also have a situation here where we could have parents that are at risk, single moms at risk in an illegal suite, and all of a sudden they can't have a farm stand because an inspection would show that they're in an illegal suite. They're in contravention of bylaw. They can't do anything about it. If they try, they may end up homeless. This is not actually a situation that treats everyone fairly. The people that are at risk become more at risk. The people who have $50 and the resources to take care of it don't even care. It doesn't bother them in the least. So I think we do need equity, but that equity actually should be protecting the poor. And I think it's important, especially following the presentation we just had earlier, to really think about this carefully and not put forward a broad brush that's going to penalize the poorest in our population.
Okay, second time speaker, Councillor Logans.
I'd like to remind everyone that the mover of the recommendation at the committee level was the same person who wrote the report that we were provided earlier. Ms. Bossi moved and supported this recommendation that council require businesses in Sooke be required to obtain a license, and she also presented that to us earlier. Another thing I want to point out is that the motion is just that we require all businesses to obtain a license. It has nothing to do with fees. However, of course, there is fee information in the bylaw. Perhaps we could look at something, as Councillor St. Pierre discussed, in addition to moving this recommendation, that we also adjust the fees. If you make under this much, this is the fee. If you make over this much, this is the fee. That would be equitable. But reducing it to farm stands is not equitable. And saying that it's going to shut down illegal suites, I mean, this is not a solution to illegal suites. So that's a whole other issue. And you'll have to bring forward a motion to change different bylaws to address that. But my point to this is we should require everyone to obtain a license. And perhaps after this motion, agreeing that we should have everyone obtain a license, and I get if you don't agree with that, but I support it. After that, we could probably have the discussion on, let's have another motion. We could bring it back to the committee and say, is there a threshold that we should be looking at? Reminding you all again that the person who created the report that we just received also is on the committee and created this, made this motion to bring forward to us. So there's a lot of background experience and education and information that group can provide us in terms of what that threshold might be.
Okay, do I have any, Councillor Beddoes, second time speaker?
Yeah, I'm not going to argue a little bit with Councillor Logan's logic there. I mean, there's some very good points there. Again, I never ever wanted not to have a business license, but I do like the idea of either exemption or a sliding scale. Maybe that would handle it, but I'd much rather send it back to the committee with that suggestion that they look at the sliding scale and come back with a recommendation again. Because clearly, from what I hear tonight, not everybody's exactly happy with this. And it's not to say that they're not producing good work. They are producing good work. And it wasn't lost on me who made that recommendation. But again, I go back to what we've been trying to do for 2.5 years when it comes to food security, and some very passionate discussions about it. And I think that this is one of those things that we could stand up and make a difference. And so, I mean, whether you do it with a threshold of anybody making under $1,000, they're exempt from the fee, but they still have to have a license. That may be done it, but I'd rather see it done now as opposed to passing something and then coming back and making a different fee structure. So I think we're getting close. I don't want to discourage people that have put in this very, very good work, but I don't think we're there yet. And I'd like to see that one further step. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So for myself, I'm in support. I agree with what Councillor Logans has said. I heard recently from a business owner with a bricks and mortar business standalone is struggling severely through this, and there's likely others that are the same. So it's and that's where I agree with not sort of favoring one type of business or one way of earning an income over another. I think asking a business to say, prove that you can't pay this, prove to us that you're in financial hardship. I'm just not comfortable going there at all. I think that's a lot of personal information to provide. What dollar value would that be? I'm not comfortable with that. I'd rather, if it's a matter of farm stands and someone selling blackberries or whatever, I think we just look at the fees and the fees bylaw itself and make a determination on what we want that to pay. So I see that, for example, nonprofit organizations required to have a business license do not pay the fee. So do we look at something like that? But I think asking someone to prove their circumstances, I mean, what sort of judgment are we going to put on that, and how do you view that? It's so personal and just so private. I just wouldn't want to go there. But I think that in every business in Sooke, depending, because of the pandemic, and some are doing extraordinarily well and others are hanging on, and you don't know who that is, and I don't think they should have to prove that to us. I think the main thing is let's get business license in place, and then if we feel that one category is too extreme, then we adjust it in the fees and address it that way. I just don't want to go down the road of asking. I just can't go there. So I'm going to support the motion, though. It's the committee had a well thought out discussion of it, I think. Great representation around that table. And so I agree with the motion. So I'll go to Councillor Lajeunesse, and then I'm going to call the question because we've gone through the rounds of discussion on this. Go ahead, Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. One thing that the committee has given their recommendation, and I don't think it's appropriate to send it back to the committee. I mean, we've been over this, 3 times now, and we haven't been able to come to an agreement on it, and the committee has given its decision. And the other thing is, how do we determine how much money a farm stand makes, or a person selling blackberries? They're accepting cash. Are they obligated to hire an accountant to do their books for them, or like how do we even know how much money people are making selling something on the side of the road for cash?
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? All those in favor, please. I see Councillor Logans. I can't see see all your hands. You need to put it more center if you're in favor. Okay, so I have Councillor Logans, Councillor Bateman, Councillor Lajeunesse, and myself are in favor. All those opposed? Councillor Beddoes and Councillor St. Pierre this way, oh, other way, are opposed. Okay, the motion carries. Okay, so it carries. So I'll ask our corporate officer again. So next steps, you're going to bring the entire package back. I am hearing a lot of discussion around the fees for farm stands. So will we look for, do you need a motion to provide us with some options for us to consider with the fees and charges stable, or you know, just given that I am hearing a bit more that everyone wants the business license, or majority of council supports that. It's more now the fees piece, or is that going to be another, I'm assuming that's probably actually another debate, but I'll just ask our corporate officer for some clarity there.
I think because the fees and charges bylaw will be coming back with an amendment, there will be an opportunity to have that discussion. I think the first piece of business is getting the bylaw adopted. The fees and charges are in a separate bylaw. They're not part of the business license bylaw. So I think that would be our first line of business. And then, like I said, the policy will be coming back to deal with outstanding renewals of licenses, and then the fees and charges amendment that will contain the the late fees or the penalties for not renewing your license, as well as I can include in the report the current fee structure as you were just looking at earlier, and then that I think would open up some debate for council.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Machada. Okay, so we'll move on to 13.3, return to council chambers. So we have a report here that our staff has provided. So I'll turn it over to staff just to add anything further. Thank you for the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I don't think that there's anything really to add there. Things are on track to start returning to the next phases. That was announced tomorrow. We'll return to phase 2. Phase 3 we are looking at, I believe, is July 1st, which we're already on track to meet that as well, as long as the numbers keep going down. So the recommendation is to have council return to chambers for their next regular meeting on June 28th. At which time we will also be introducing a little bit more technology. So that will be coming into play, and we'll have a lot smoother stream of our live stream and broadcast. So that is all planned to be in place for the 28th. And then the anticipated return to quote unquote normal is early September. So we recommend that we open our doors to the public in September based on returning to normal, so that we can accommodate all meetings as we used to. I did advise there that there would be some more information forthcoming on electronic meetings. I was sitting in on a provincial focus group on that last Thursday. So the legislation is planning to be in place at the time the 90-day COVID Act expires, which according to plan should be early October. But we cannot amend our current council procedure bylaw until that legislation is in place. So there will be a period of likely 2 meetings. Should council want to continue to offer electronic meetings, there will be a couple of meetings where we won't have the opportunity to do so, because we can't amend our bylaw until that new legislation is in place. But again, I think that's for future discussion. Just recommend council return June 28th with the public planning to return in September, along with the approval of step 4 of the restart plan.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Machada. Councillor Logans.
I can't believe this discussion is finally here. It's so nice to see. Personally, I'm not going to return to chambers until after masks are are no longer required, as I can't, for health reasons, wear one for hours and hours and hours. But I'm excited. I think that will probably lift. It should lift on July 1st, I believe, if things go as planned. So I'm not comfortable going with the 28th personally, but if y'all want to do that and I join by phone or video, that's fine with me.
Thank you, Councillor Logan. For myself, I read this with excitement, but I'm also a bit reluctant because I also hear I've only had one shot and I'm waiting for my second. So I've also heard the first shot is to prevent you from spreading. The second one is to protect yourself. So I get that things are reopening. It's just I don't have that second dose yet. I have a family and others to think of, and I don't know where everyone else is at. So it just makes me want to be cautious until I'm fully vaccinated. So I get the desire of staff to get the technology up and running. I also feel that, part of me too is that, well, it's great to see all of you in person. We still don't have the public there. It's still really weird meeting in chambers without the public. And we know that it won't be safe to do so until September. So I'm torn on this one. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think June 28th, it just might be a little bit premature, although I desperately would like to return to chambers, and I desperately would like to meet with my OCP committee that we can sit around the table and discussion, but it looks like that is possible because of the numbers and things. I would be much more comfortable moving to chambers after the July 1st. I mean, it might be a week or two, but that also gives everybody else a chance to, I think more of us will have our second shots by that date. So June 28th is, I really love the idea. I think it is just a bit premature. So I'd be willing to push that first meeting off into July and, go from there. I'd be interested what other councillors say, but the 28th, I think it's just a bit early, but I'll hear what other people say.
Councillor St. Pierre, then La Jeunesse.
Yeah, I would agree with the comments that have been made, but from Ms. Mushata's presentation, I think that part of it is testing the technology and seeing how we can use the new technology. So I'm curious as to whether or not we could have a certain number, not necessarily all staff, available in chambers for the testing of the technology, and then council could still come in virtually and we'd have a chance to achieve both objectives while waiting till after the 28th. But that's just a thought.
Your worship, to Councillor St. Pierre, the technology is neither here nor there. It's just something that it was a goal for us to have it in place. We will still plan to have it in place for the 28th, but we may or may not implement it because it would have a different impact for members of council through participating through the new piece of software. So we may just leave things the way they are until council returns. And so I'm assuming if you want to amend that motion, it would be June 12th. Or sorry, July 12th, or
Yeah,
the next meeting would be July 26th, or we just leave it all until a return until.
I think we don't have a motion on the floor. I mean, what we could do is receive this for information, and then I think kind of have it as a standing item at the next meeting and see where is everyone with vaccines. Like, I'm not even registered to get my second one. My dad is, but my husband has, I just throw that because he's older, so technically he should be getting his first, right? So that kind of gives me a sense of where I fall in order, right? Like he got his a week later, I got mine. So we would just have more insight if we just sort of take it in that way. Councillor La Jeunesse?
Yeah, I was just going to say that for me, I would be okay with going back into chambers on the 28th, and the reason I say that is because when I go out to the store, or I go to different places where I'm in the public, and people are not all that careful about staying 6 feet apart in grocery stores and other places like that. And for us, meeting in chambers, it would be a much more controlled environment where we would actually maintain the 6 foot distance. And I'd be more comfortable meeting with you folks in chambers than I am going to the grocery store, frankly.
Well, fair enough. Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I'm okay with this either way. I do note that the CRD last week, for example, there must have been at least 25 people in the room together. They don't allow the public in, who they all have to beam in via Zoom. However, there were 25 people in that room, no masks whatsoever. And but though I'm quite happy to wait until July to reconvene.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. And yes, the CRD board and committees have been continuing to meet in person, though the chair has strongly, every email, like strongly recommends electronic participation. And so since last year, I went in person once. There was 3 meetings that day and I chaired the committee. So I wasn't sure what that would look like chairing a meeting where you can't see staff at all. So, but when I was there, there was only a handful. The majority of people in the 2 special meetings were online. There was maybe only 4 directors in that boardroom, and same like through that whole day. And then I haven't been back since. And it's mainly because I don't have my 2nd dose yet. So and then you hear of the variant, and I know there's a lot of news and a lot of fake news, so sometimes it's a lot to go through, so it varies. Everyone's reaction to this is going to be a bit different because our experience through this is entirely different. Okay, so I think for now though, what I'm hearing is that we can do the first part. Let's receive this report for information. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you. And so the next part of this, that council members return to council chambers on the 28th. So at this point, like we received this for information, can we have this as a sort of, you know, we postpone this to our next meeting and we can just discuss, you know.
Would that be tabling the motion?
Check in?
There's no
Well,
motion.
there's no motion, so it was more just to bring the report back. It's more a direction is that that council bring this report back for consideration at the June 28th meeting.
That works.
That works. As a motion, you would like that?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay, so we bring it back to June 28th. I move by Councillor Beto, seconded by Councillor Logans. We'll get more information there, see where everyone's at, and off we go. Okay? All those in favor? Any opposed? No, that's unanimous. I saw your hands. Okay, great. Thank you very much, staff, and thank you, council, for the thoughtful discussion. So next up is item 13.4, Sooke Potholes Gate Policy CO009. Fairly straightforward report here. The recommendation is that council adopts CO-009 Sooke Potholes Gate Policy. Councillor St. Pierre.
We wanted to make one small amendment to the wording of the policy.
Okay.
And it's just since the policy was drafted, the CRD and our park staff have come to an agreement about the actual time of closing and what the signage will be posted at the gate. So under principle number 1, nightly closure, the wording would be the gate will be closed and locked each evening at dusk and reopened each morning at dawn. And the wording will be as such on the signage.
Okay, so just a question there. So seeing that our park staff consulted with the CRD, that works okay with the campground users?
That was why they got together to figure out how they'll deal with emergencies after the gates have been closed. So that's all been worked out between the parties and the contractor that opens the gate and our emergency services.
Okay, because I'm thinking there must be a way if you're at the campground, if you need to get out of there and go home, like at 3 in the morning, you can. right?
Yes,
They're not
our
going to leave you in
department,
there.
our
So.
park staff, our contractor, and the RCMP all have a key to the gate to open it in emergencies.
Okay, very good. Councillor Beddoes, go ahead, please. You're on mute. You're on mute.
It was the last of all those hands, but I will take the opportunity. I guess my only question is, and maybe this has slipped by me, but we're doing that all year round, closing the gate at dusk. Do we really need to close the gate in the summertime? The whole idea was this. Now, there's two gates there, right? There's the one to the CRD, and then there's the one for us, or is it just one gate? So I'm not quite clear on that. So if somebody could clear that up. But again, I can understand the campground wants to close their gate at a certain time, but we're just interested in the parking lot, which we own. Why do we need to close a gate for that at, through the summertime? I mean, I understand the rainy season, and that's what this is all about. So I'm not quite clear of that. So if somebody could explain that to me, I'd be happy.
Through your worship to Councillor Beddoes. Again, yes, absolutely. The stormy season is our main concern, but that is when we have the extra, or when we be looking for additional closures beyond the dawn to dusk. Most of our parks anyway, through our parks bylaw, are typically closed from dawn to dusk, whether or not there's a gate or not. But I think it just provides that little bit of extra security that, during the evening hours, there won't be a lot of public around. So if somebody were to go up in the middle of the evening, the middle of the night and access that area, there's potential for incidents. And I think it's just really a safety precaution. And there are two gates and they are both closed simultaneously.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other hands, Councillor Logans, and then St. Pierre.
Ms. Machada addressed it. I was just going to say, what? This timing doesn't make sense, but I'm really glad that it was updated. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you. As it happens, I can offer some further clarity to Councillor Beddoes' question. I know someone who's actually involved in closing the gates. And part of the reason is that there are people that do park and then camp directly in the parking lot. And so this is actually to prevent that sort of thing from happening as well. So not just the rainy season, but also preventing people from camping in the parking lot.
That's good information. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? So we have the recommendation that Council adopt CO-009 Sooke Potholes Gate Policy. Moved by Councillor as amended gate policy. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Logans. Dawn to dusk. Got it. All right. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you, Council. Thank you, staff. Okay. Next up, 13.5, flag from the local First Nations.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is an initiative that the MOU working group has been working on for quite some time. It's on the agenda tonight just for information. I didn't want council to see a post hole digger out in the front lawn and wondering what's going on. So we are going to erect a fourth flagpole. The Sooke Nation is going to provide us with a flag, and then council will see our flag policy come back for amendment at a subsequent meeting.
So it's here for information. We just discussed having some type of a ceremonial event together, though, councils to councils together, where we would actually hoist the flag.
Yes, sure.
That's important. So the pole will go in, but we'll actually fly it or hoist it and then fly it together. Raise it. I'll get the language down, I'm sure. Hey, questions? Councillor St. Pierre?
I was just going to move to receive the report for information.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Logans. Discussion from anyone? Seeing none, all in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Just while we're on flags, just one note is when I was at the night market, the Sooke Historical Society or the museum staff have reached out that they would like to replace the District of Sooke sign. They took everything down for cleaning and it needs to be replaced. So just a side note that to our staff, or museum staff will reach out, or please reach back to them. Okay, next up is zoning bylaws 14.1. We have a zoning amendment here, zoning bylaw amendment 2614 Otter Point Road. Over to staff, please.
Just to confirm from the supplemental agenda, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, Mr. Powell, for catching that. I was looking at not my updated version. So 13.6 is a new business item. It's supplementary package number 1. And thank you for that. This is for Sooke Oceanside Brewery, a lounge area endorsement. So please go ahead, Mr. Powell, on this.
Thank you. So this is before council, as council is the necessary authority for providing comment on these types of applications back to the LCRB. So what is before in the recommendation with council is the option to opt out of comment. And so what that means is on their online portal, so now with administration of their applications that come in, it's all done electronically. So through that process, you can opt out of comment, and then it would proceed through their standard process, which is to still gather the views of residents. So we would essentially, as opposed to us facilitating that role and providing the comments, the LCRB would go through that process. And then if there was any additional information from staff that they would require, they would get in contact with us to make sure that things were done in accordance with public interest. So for that purpose, staff is recommending the opt-out. But in terms of the information that was provided in their application, they would be looking to have approximately 50 patrons on the property for Sooke Oceanside Brewery, so approximately half in accommodated and half out on the patio. Sales operations Sunday to Thursday 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. and then Friday to Saturday 11 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. Also in contact with the applicants last week, they've indicated from conversations that they had with surrounding properties that they've indicated they've been supportive and looking forward to this site being redeveloped, both with the brewery, but also the surf shop and the bike shop. Properties currently zoned C3 previously, so going through the necessary approval processes, building permits were able to be issued last month. Building or business license is still outstanding, certainly because of the necessary approvals for the liquor license. But if council supports an opt-out tonight, I'm able to go onto the website and provide that information to the LCRB so they can continue their process. And if the LCRB is satisfied with this, we will let the applicants know and continue on with the building permit process to occupancy, and as well issuing the business license if they meet all those necessary requirements. So at this time, staff felt it was appropriate to let the LCRB continue on in their process. However, should council wish to seek comment on this application, we'll work with the applicants to start that and do the necessary notice to adjacent landowners, and then schedule a date where this would come back before council for public input by those who wish to provide that comment. However, as indicated, we were satisfied at the staff level to defer that responsibility to the LCRB. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Questions from members of council? Any questions for Mr. Powell? Go ahead, Councillor Lajeunesse.
I'd just like to move that council opt out of comment for Sooke Oceanside Brewery 30070 application number 16531 for a lounge area endorsement.
Okay, this has been moved by Councillor Lajeunesse, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any comment from Councillor Lajeunesse as the mover?
Nope, I don't see any reason to hold this up.
Seconder, Councillor St. Pierre, anything? Anything from anyone else? Okay, call a question. All in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Powell. There's been a request for a short 5-minute break, so I'm going to do that now before we switch into the bylaw section. So a 5-minute break. I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. It's 8:44, so at 8:49. Okay, we're at the 5-minute mark, so ready to go on, though I see that I'm meeting with myself, so I'll wait for the rest of council. Please join me back in the meeting.
I was hoping we'd all rebel and come back at 8:50.
Oh, I almost thought you were all going to do that. Okay, we have quorum, so we'll head into 14.1, zoning amendment bylaw for 2614 Otter Point Road. Go ahead, please, Mr. Powell. Uh-oh, he's rebelling.
No, I'm here. I'm going to share my screen. You have 3 screens and trying to share. You got to make sure you get the right one here. Okay, there we go.
We can see it. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so districts received a zoning bylaw amendment application for rezoning of 2614 Otter Point Road from the rural residential RU4 zone to neighborhood rural residential RU5 for the purposes of creating 5 lots. The 2-hectare parcel is located approximately 2 kilometers north of the town center, with access being provided from Otter Point Road. There's an existing home and several accessory buildings on the property that are proposed to remain. This subject property is designated community residential in the official community plan. This is the area within which low to medium density residential growth will occur. The proposed rezoning amendment meets the objectives of the community residential land use designation and will provide low density infill while preserving the rural character of the surrounding neighborhood. This rezoning proposal provides for a natural transition from the medium lot residential zone neighboring property to the west, referred to as Farrell Estates, through to Otter Point Road, where it's more rural in character. A new public road is being constructed between the subject property and 2604 Otter Point Road, which was recently rezoned to RU5 as well to provide for a connection to Farrell Estates out to Otter Point Road. The official community plan considers allowing developers the flexibility to provide their required affordable housing in different forms, thus creating an affordable housing mix in new developments or cash in lieu. The applicant has acknowledged the importance of affordable housing and has volunteered to contribute $12,000 for the proposed additional 4 lots. As a community amenity contribution, the applicant is required to upgrade BC Transit stop 102320. Improvements at this location must include adding a level and accessible pad with identifying flag signage. As per section 510 of the Local Government Act, a 5% land dedication or cash in lieu is required for subdivisions creating 3 or more lots to be payable to the district. Because the Parks and Trails Master Plan does not make specific recommendations for park acquisition of land in the vicinity of this property, staff recommend that council consider accepting cash in lieu of park land dedication at the time of development permit consideration, as the proposal is to create a total of 5 lots. The development permit will be considered prior to subdivision should rezoning be approved. As part of the application, the applicant provided a development justification letter for the rezoning amendment request, stating that the proposed rezoning to RU5 from RU4 provides new homes for residents, as well as allowing for a variety of housing tenures to be built. So this could take the form of single-family dwellings with either a secondary suite or small suite, or alternatively, instead of single-family, a duplex unit on the subject properties. And this rezoning will be beneficial to Sooke based on the applicant's proposal for further densification of these of this existing parcel. The zoning amendment application meets the requirements of the District of Sooke's bylaws and policies. Therefore, staff recommends first and second reading to amend the zoning from rural residential RU4 to neighborhood rural residential RU5. to proceed with scheduling a public hearing, allowing for public input on the proposal, and to enter into a Section 219 covenant prior to final adoption of the bylaw. That concludes my presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paulo. Before I turn to council to consider the staff recommendation, I'll look, are there questions for Mr. Paulo on his report? Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, did I see somewhere in the report that this is going to connect up with the development off of Burr Road at some point, or that the opportunity is there to do that eventually?
So the development to the west, Farrell Estates, that subdivision, yes, there's already a rezoning that took place and was approved just to the south of this property, so it was rezoned to RU5. So likewise, this landowner is also seeking that same rezoning to establish a higher density for residential development on the parcel, and then to allow for that road connection to go into to development off of Burr Road. So ultimately creating, the idea is working with with those two property owners to create that transition zone so that while it won't have the urban densities of that other subdivision, Farrell Estates, it will be a transition of rural development leading up to back to Otter Point Road.
Okay, good.
Okay, other questions? Okay, so I'm going to ask Ms. Machada for this recommendation. Can this all be read together, or do you require them all broken up? 1, 2, and the 4 paragraphs.
They can all go together.
Okay, here we go. That council give first and second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 813-600-86 2021 to amend the zoning on the property located at 2614 Otter Point Road from rural residential RU4 to neighborhood rural residential RU5, and that council schedule the public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw number 813-600-86 2021 in accordance with section 466 of the Local Government Act, that council accept cash in lieu for the required 5% parkland dedication per section 510 of the Local Government Act, and that prior to final adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 813-600-89 2021, the owner enters into section 219 covenants to address frontage improvements and servicing requirements, community amenity contributions, cash in lieu in the amount of $12,000 for 10% affordable housing for residential developments and other necessary works and services. So I'll look for a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Logans, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any comments? Councillor Logans is the mover. Councillor St. Pierre is seconder.
Just very quickly, I'm always sad when we get cash in lieu, but I'm curious what the amount is going to be for the parks portion.
Do we have that answer roughly?
Oh, I don't have that number available at this time. Should this go forward and be approved for rezoning, then at the subdivision and development permit stage, we'll determine the total area of the 5% cash in lieu requirement. So we'll have to calculate it based on that rate of that time when the application comes forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Any comments from anyone else? Okay, see none. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. So next up is 15.1, new business item, which is the supplementary number 2 package. And this is a notice of motion from Councillor Lajeunesse. Typically that we would read into the record tonight and be debated at the next meeting. However, given some timing and the idea of opening things up, I'm going to ask if council is comfortable waiving notice on this notice. We would need to do that to a vote. So I'm going to request that council waive notice and we deliberate on this item tonight.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, so I guess I've moved that we're waiving notice, and Councillor Bateman has seconded me. So all those in favor of waiving notice? Is anyone opposed to waiving notice? Okay, so that's unanimous. Here, I'm wondering, Councillor Beddoes, would you need to recuse yourself or not? I'm gonna leave it to you to make that determination. You're on mute though.
Damn, I should get my own sign out about being muted. I was trying to draw it up and I'm having a little bit of difficulty. Just very briefly, what's it about again? I did read it and I did make some notes, but I can't remember exactly what it is.
It's because the notice mentions the Sooke Lions Club, so it's basically is that council direct staff to leave.
The belated July 1st. No, I should not be in conflict with that. That's just a request to go out to different groups and solicit some ideas. So no, I don't feel I'm in conflict.
Okay, I just wanted to check. Okay,
No.
so the notice of motion, and I'll read it out, is that council directs staff to liaise with the Sooke Lions Club, Peter Johansson, and other relevant community groups to organize a community celebration to take place over the weekend of September 11-12 to mark the beginning of step 4 of the provincial restart plan, and that council authorize staff to allocate funds from the Canada Day budget to cover costs associated with hosting said community celebration. So that's the motion from Councillor Lajeunesse. I'll now look for someone to second it. Seconded by Councillor St. Pierre to open that discussion. So that's been moved and seconded. So Councillor Lajeunesse, you have the floor.
Yeah, so this was ever since the lockdown began, I've kind of personally been of the opinion that when things do reopen, because we've had to put off every live event for the last year and a half, that it would be good to have a live celebration to kind of bring the community back together. And at the end of the last SPA committee meeting that went overtime, I just kind of brought up the idea and had a discussion with Peter Jonason following the meeting, and he indicated that he had secured what he referred to as a sizable grant to host a virtual concert. And I thought on the Labor Day weekend, and so I suggested that if he could somehow postpone that by a week, that the phase 4 of the reopening was scheduled to occur following the Labor Day weekend, and that I would like to combine forces with what he was doing to host a kind of larger in-person event just to welcome everyone back before we kind of get into our fall weather. And then at Mayor Tate's request, I contacted the Lions Club, and they were in favor of combining forces with Mr. Jonason to seek out other community organizations that might want to tag along with this event. I talked to members of the Sooke Philharmonic who've been dying to perform in front of a live audience, and so I just think that it'll be a great opportunity to have a community celebration, kind of to celebrate the emergence from our hibernation. And that's about it.
Thank you, Councillor Lesh. Okay, over to Councillor Logans.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this forward. It will be really wonderful. I just want to ask if we're set on the dates or if those are movable, because I'm doing a lot of work in the event industry right now. And what we found is that we'll always be trying to keep us up to date minute by minute on what's going on. But every time there's a new announcement, there will be a delay between the announcement and then the requirements and the COVID safety plan recommendations. And once they've posted the new requirements, they end up changing them and redacting them and changing the wording, and it gets confusing, and there's like a week period of people being confused about where they fit into the plan as complaints come in and say, hey, you've excluded us and you haven't thought of this and you haven't thought of that. So it takes a while for the regulations to actually settle in every time that there's a new change. So I'm definitely not against this in any way, and it's timely that we get this going. But I don't know that the dates can be set in stone at this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just speaking with Mr. Jonason, he indicated that the crucial components to organize an event like this is reserving porta potties and a stage and St. John ambulance and all of those things have to be scheduled because there's going to be a lot of competition for those types of things. And so the sooner we can organize it and get all of those things lined up and reserved, the better off we'll be. And so I'm not sure. It seems like if things stay on track and we all are in fact getting our second vaccinations in July and August, then September should be a safe bet. But of course, nothing is certain these days.
Yeah, and I completely agree, because it's not that it isn't a safe bet, and it does seem to me, I've been really like hesitant to say things will be going smoothly, but I think things are actually going smoothly right now, knock on wood. So I think like in terms of things opening up, the timeline will be right, but the actual policies don't come out at the same time as the announcement. So that's just something to bring back to Mr. Jonason, is that you can plan for it and it may be open at that time in terms of like what the next steps are, but we don't know the details of that step until between 5 and 10 days after the announcements actually happened as event organizers. So it's just something to bring back. I'm, again, totally not opposed to it, but just a cautionary note for having set dates.
Yeah, okay. We're planning to meet tomorrow afternoon to discuss this. So I'll mention that.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I understand what Councillor Logan is saying. I'm planning in a committee to have an Oktoberfest on the 2nd of October. So we have to be very conscious of that as well. But fortunately, that one's another month away, so we're taking a chance. I do think you'll have to lock in a date. It's pretty hard to organize anything and lock people in. But I think in today's environment, most of the people that you do lock in know that these things could go sideways at any given time. And most of the people that I've been dealing with in the last little while understand that even though we're picking a date in October, they know that it could be canceled because of an upswing in COVID. So I think take that under consideration. But I think sooner or later you're going to have to lock in a day, just for planning purposes. But it's caution, and we're all a bit twitchy, and we all want to get on with things, but we have to move very cautiously. So I agree in some respects, but I think logistics tell you you're going to have to lock in a date sooner than later. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. McInnes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make sure that we're all speaking the same language here. So the District of Sooke does not have a Canada Day budget per se, but the Lions do have a allocation in their service agreement. And I'll ask Ms. Gray to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's $20,000 plus an additional $10,000 for the loggers that we wanted to bring back. So I'm assuming that that is the budget that we're talking about having access to.
Yes.
Thank you. And of course, the Lions would concur with that, I assume, Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions? No, I agree with all of you. I think it's a case of, you know, at some point you need to target a date. what you know, and I think it's just we get updates as we hit various stages. Councillor Lajeunesse, just give us an update in terms of where you're at. Things continue that, you know, we'll need to inform the community, get the message out, all that, come to the party, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, you are going to need to grab those items because they're going to be difficult to find. Councillor St. Pierre?
I'd just like to move the motion at this point.
It's already moved and seconded.
Oh, it's already
'cause
moved and
a notice
seconded. Okay,
motion.
then as additional comment, we've had a lot of discussion at our previous meeting about a July 1st rollout. This is 2 months later. I think it's great timing, and let's just do it.
Okay, anything further from anyone? Councillor Bateman, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Councillor Lajeunesse. And do you anticipate, did you say earlier that it would be at John Phillips, or is this at the Sooke Flats, or?
I think currently Peter's idea is to have it at John Phillips. We haven't actually gotten together to discuss this yet, but I think it would be a good idea to discuss it with the community association as well, just because I think I don't know how many people we're going to be anticipating are going to show up, but because the flats has more parking availability and there's also C Park, which we might be able to spill some parking into there. I don't know. But we'll start that discussion tomorrow. And just the other thing on the dates, the grant that Peter has secured was contingent on it happening on the Labor Day weekend. And they did have a stipulation in there that it could be changed if you had a very good reason to change it. And so I think as soon as I told him that the stage 4 was going to happen after Labor Day, then he kind of chose that weekend. But we'll have that discussion tomorrow.
Okay, I think there's just more information to come. I think if things do progress according to the restart plan, just keep in mind that C Park, the ice will be in, return to hockey, very exciting, a lot of programming. Saturday, you know, it can be really busy at the arena, especially if hockey's full back. So, the program guide for C Park isn't out yet, but just keep that in mind that the parking may not be available because all of the other programming that everyone is so excited about is going to be back at play there. I mean, just look at how busy it is with the night market and trying to find parking at C Park on a Thursday night. Never mind hockey and the return to sport and the fitness and all the amenities that C Park offers. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah.
Just to note, having been involved in Canada Day over the years and run it a few times, normally because they have the money, the Lions, they'll put a bus service on. And there won't be a requirement to park at John Phillips. You could pick it up at any number of locations around town. And I guess the whole idea there is encourage people to just go to the, say, 6 bus stops and walk there and be picked up and brought to John Phillips and returned again. So it's logistically, it's all doable. And I think the groups that Dana was suggesting would have the expertise to carry it off. So yeah, good on you. I think this is a good plan.
Yeah, and that's the same way all Sooke Day used to be run. There was parking at the flats, but there was also shuttle service. And one of the last all Sooke Day events, there were 14,000 people. So we should be able to make it work one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we've done some things in John Phillips Memorial. Of course, Canada Day's been at the flats for as long as I can remember. So I think the right people who are doing this, as Councillor Beddoes said, know how to organize it. So we'll get more information. Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Good luck and keep us posted. Okay, so heading back into the agenda is item 16.1, minister meetings at the 2020 UBCM convention. So one thing I can say with certainty is the UBCM convention will be virtual. Just the amount of work that's needed to plan that event and to secure space going with what we knew meant we had to choose a virtual option because of what we all know. So as you know, part of this is the minister meetings are held at the same time. So we need, and in this case, actually, they're going to hold them the week prior, which is great because then it doesn't interfere with the rest of the UBCM program. But we do need to begin this process and to submit our requests by June the 30th. And so some advocacy items that came to mind, just given our deliberations over the grants and what we're hearing from the community, as well as work that's happening through the Sooke Healthcare Committee, is really understanding the impact of mental health, the lack of services out our way, and how we need to coordinate better. And so at our last Sooke Health Committee meeting, we are looking to go through a mapping exercise that focuses on Sooke specifically. We've done something similar in the past when it looked at allied health practitioners, so focusing on physicians and other like nurse practitioner and the like to support the West Coast Family Medical Center. And so now we're looking to do that same exercise around mental health. And this also came to mind because of the grants that we funded, which I think we all agreed were important to fund. We found a unique way to find them with the COVID-19 recovery funds. However, they don't necessarily belong as a local government responsibility. These are provincial responsibilities. And so I feel that in some of the conversations that I've had the opportunity to be present in, what I heard from the minister was both the last and current ministers is that they also want to hear from local government. Here's sort of how they cover all of BC, but then what is specific needs in a community like ours. So one request for myself is to meet with Minister Malcolmson to share where we're at. So what have we funded and what have we learned? We also have the recent study that was shared with us today, all Sooke specific, and also to share where we're going with our mental health mapping exercise in the future. So that would be one request that I would like to put forward. The second one is we're now able to slowly start resuming some of our healthcare in general. So for those of you that had followed this journey with me, we put together our suite of asks. Some of it was funded, some of it wasn't funded. The clinic expansion was funded, and then all the work had to go on hold for obvious reasons of the pandemic. And so now we're starting to pick that up. There is an ask out to the Ministry of Health to support the West Coast Family Medical Center. We would know by the time the meeting came around whether or not we were successful or not. So if we're not successful, then I want to find out why and to advocate, because we've been doing a lot of work to really bring up health. So the second one would be with Minister Dix. And then I also put Minister Darcy, because I still haven't had a meeting to deal with the moratorium on wolf hunting. Her staffer kindly sent us a letter, but that doesn't go far enough for me. So those are sort of three that came to mind. So I just, we would then work on the briefing pieces from there. But I thought I would raise this, that here's sort of what I'm thinking. And what are your thoughts? So Councillor Bateman, then St. Pierre, please.
Yeah, those sound all excellent. I'm wondering if you'd want to again add the Minister of Education. Last year you spoke with, who was the minister then? Fleming.
It was Minister Fleming.
And now we have Minister Whiteside, and you made some very good points about the need for upgrades to Sooke Elementary, et cetera, Sun River. That might be something you'd like to do again.
I thought of that, but Minister Whiteside directed me back to SD 62. So that comes to our MOU that we've signed off, and I'd rather start with SD 62 first to find out where are they at, rather than jumping right over them back to the new minister.
Okay.
And so in part of formalizing that document, and it formalizes the meetings and the sharing of information, if that isn't successful, then I would say that I would do that. But given that that's in motion, that would make more sense to me at this stage.
Okay. Good.
Because she'll just ask, have you met with the SD62? And it'll just put us in the circle again. And my meeting the last time was based on the previous, anyway. Go back to that. Okay. I almost said Minister St. Pierre. So Councillor St. Pierre.
I was just curious as to whether or not this was an opportunity to mention ecom to the appropriate people and the devolution of those costs and how it might affect the various districts.
We're already meeting with the minister directly on that.
Okay.
So we've had one meeting, we followed up. And so I think that's already in the work with the minister. So I think we're covered there. Okay, so seeing no other comment, I would like to propose then that council, let's see, provide direction on registering for minister meetings. So it's more that the direction then is that council direct staff. I guess our direction would be that that council directs staff to register for ministerial meetings with the Minister of Mental Health, the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Forest and Natural Resources. So I'll make that motion during UBCM, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, and then together we'll work on those briefing documents. The first part when we register is that we'll need to say why we want to meet, and then as we have a bit more time up our sleeves to provide sort of some briefing prior to the meeting and then at the meeting themselves. Okay, sound good to everyone? Perfect. So that's the motion. Moved and seconded.
Question.
Yeah. Yes.
What's the latest if we have any more advocacy work? When's our last chance to put that in? Is this it?
I see no June 30th, so we would have one more meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'll call, Councillor Bateman, go ahead.
Yeah, just to note that August 13th is the deadline for meetings with staff at ministries, agencies, commissions, and corporations. So we do have some time to talk to the second and thirds and fourths in command.
Yeah, so we have a bit more opportunity for that, as well as BC Hydro would be another. We have a bit more time on BC assessment. So some food for thought there as well. But these are the main ones I think we want to get out. Okay, all right, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And none opposed. Thank you very much. Next up is item 17, council verbal reports, please. Who would like to go first? Councillor, I'll just go around. Councillor St. Pierre, you're good. Councillor Logans?
Nothing too exciting to report. I've been to the Regional Housing Trust Fund and JDF Water Commission meetings lately, and the Sooke Working Group MOU meeting, but nothing too crazy to bring back.
Thank you, Councillor Logans. Councillor Lajeunesse?
Yeah, nothing to report. I haven't done anything, but the Sooke Philharmonic has posted their virtual garden tour, and there's some excellent video footage along with some music to accompany those, and I would encourage everyone to go and check it out and make a donation if you can.
They're quite beautiful, actually. Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, so I guess a number of us attended the AVIC and FCM virtual conventions, which were were great and had lots of content, but the highlight, I think, for all of us, or for me anyway, was getting to hang out with Councillor Lajeunesse and St. Pierre and the mayor and Councillor Beddoes for some quality in-person time in chambers. And there was a meeting of the working group, the Sooke Homelessness Coalition, and we have identified a couple of dates in the fall when we, Al, you're not muted.
Oh,
I need
sorry.
a sign, mute, please. A couple of dates in the fall for the start of the strategic plan process to create a three-year plan to end homelessness in the Sooke region. And the Climate Action Committee has been meeting. We had a workshop with Margaret Critchlow last week that has really given us some good focus as we move into the final 6 months of the committee's term. So that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Councillor Beddoes.
No, I'm unmuted. No, I have not much to report. Heavy hauling is on its way. The draft of the OCP arrives today, although it's not printed up yet. I'll get it tomorrow. Got a lot of heavy slugging ahead, 300 pages to go through. And Sea Park is coming up. We've got a lot of groundwork there now that Steve Noki has left. Colleen has taken the helm for the time being. And again, we've got some heavy stuff coming up there. So more to come.
Thank you, everyone. Well, it may not, to echo Councillor Lajeunesse, where you're saying you haven't done anything, you've all done a lot. It's just sometimes in the moment, it's hard to remember. But when I see the flurry of emails and activity, whether it's online or I've seen councillors about town with clipboards and so forth, I know that everyone is doing a lot of work right now. So very grateful to all of you. A few just highlights from myself. In terms of e-com, there was an article that the Sooke News Mirror put out and some commentary that for some reason I don't want to pay for policing. That's not what this is about. We fully support our CMP, grateful for the work they're doing, wanting to find ways to add more resources to their detachment that they need. What this is that we entered into a long-term agreement with the RCMP. Local government signed off on this in 2011, I believe, and it's a long-term 25, 30-year agreement. It runs all the way to 2030. Now the province of feds have decided through their own review that they don't want to pay for some of the services. So why now, 10 years into an agreement that we entered into good faith, which allowed us to plan for the future? We know that as our population increases, we will pay more. We know we're not a member of VIMQ when we're vulnerable if there was a major event in our community. We know that our OCP has a formula and we're growing and we need more resources. We plan for these things. This is an unplanned expense that is being dumped on us. So yes, I've been nicknamed as Tantrum Tate. Well, yeah, why wouldn't you be? If any one of us were in a contract with somebody, with a party that we agreed to in good faith, we would expect it to be upheld until such a time that notice is given and we have an opportunity to renegotiate. So why in the middle of it is it happening? So yeah, I suppose the nickname fits. And so that's where, and why only South Island RCMP? Why not the interior? Why not the north? Why not others? So yeah, it's problematic. So we are continuing to do a lot of information there. Mr. McInnes and our corporate staff are also helping with this because it's complicated, but to just say, okay, fine, give us the expense and we're okay. It's difficult for a community of our size to suddenly absorb an over $300,000 expense, period. And so, yeah, there is necessary, I think it's to understand more and to untangle this. And for the staff members that dumped this on us last year, they're not even with the current ministry now. So I find the whole thing entirely frustrating. So it isn't about defunding the police. It's actually a desire to fund the police and to provide them with the services they need. But at the same time, we're stewards of the public purse. So I just think I'm doing my job. So I won't speak any more about that until I have a better outcome. But that just sort of, I found that to be somewhat was quite sketchy, actually, the comments that came to me. I did share that the Sooke Healthcare Committee has been able to pick up again, which is awesome, given that much of our good work is done through the guidance and through just thoughtful contributions from our allied health practitioners, our doctors. So just having them available to participate is great. And we know that we have a lot of work to do. And so that's where it led to the mental health advocacy that currently needs to happen. While the pandemic may be over, it's going to take some time from everyone to heal from this. When I was in the high school recording my grad speech, I learned that it's been very difficult for students that are obviously excel through sports. They've been cut off from a very important part of their life. Whereas others who are maybe more introverted have thrived. And now with the return to school, things switch. Now you have a strong excitement from those, so let's say the extroverted or the sports wanting to get back to activity, and a certain anxiety on others who did well, maybe working from home. So this is going to stay with us, and there's a lot of challenges, so it's just important to keep top on that. We were able to continue Zooming with Natori City, and so Ms. Temple and I have met with Mayor Yamada recently, and you may also have seen the video that they put together for us. And why this friendship is so important is because Canada helped with the rebuilding effort when the city was hit so hard by that disastrous earthquake, and Canada sent supplies and helped with the rebuilding of the city. And so that's why the Canadian flag is flown there. Their cycling center offers Canadian coffee and they're really trying to Canadian lumber and the like. So that's why there's just such a connection. And of course, through our school programs, it's ones that has gone on since even before we incorporated. So more on that to come as well. Their vaccination rollout is not happening as quick as ours. Actually, in Japan, it's up to cities and towns to coordinate the distribution of the vaccine. So imagine if we had to come up with these plans as opposed to just having the province do it. It's a different way of delivering services, and that's likely why some things may take longer, I suppose. You may recall at a previous meeting this year, I talked about the UN Habitat and the summit in Collingwood, and some of us registered for that through the Urban Economy. So I'm not speaking well. The Economic Development Group, or I don't have it in front of me here. So they've reached out and invited me to be on their steering committee. So for those of you that think, oh, you're taking on something else, it's going to impact council work, this happens at 5:30 in the morning to accommodate other international time zones. So I don't think anyone would be looking for me from 5:30 to 8, except for my dog. So I don't see it as impactful. A couple of meetings, and it's really interesting to hear what's going on in the world. So I'll share that with you. And for those of you that have attended you've attended AVIC or LGLA, FCM, you could get your level 1 certification through the Local Government Leadership Academy. So you may want to check out their website. I finally got my level 1 last year, even though I've been elected for this long, because I never provided and didn't complete the paperwork. So suggest you do it. You get a certificate, and I've just applied for my level 2. So I'll leave that with you as you see fit, and leave it at that. So item 18, I'll turn to our corporate staff. Release of closed meeting resolutions. Do we have anything to rise and report on?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Oh, sorry. Moment here. We are rising and reporting the following motion from the earlier in-camera meeting, that Council appoint Katarina Duke to the Land Use and Development Committee as the representative of the Oceans and Fisheries Community for the remainder of the committee's term, and that Council appoint Alicia Jones to the Climate Action Committee as a member at large for the remainder of the committee's term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Machada. That brings us to item 19, adjournment. So take care, everyone. I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Thank you all very much for the excellent work that you're doing, both all of council and all of staff. We will see each other soon, but until then, stay safe and be well. All those in favor of adjournment? And we're unanimous. Thanks, everyone. Take good care. Thank you, staff, and good night to members of the public.